What is up, Pitt fans? Thank you so much for tuning in to Inside the Panthers on YouTube. My name is Stephen Thompson, coming at you with another Inside Pitt post-game report. Pitt has just lost to number 17 North Carolina, 41-24 the final in their ACC opener. The Panthers are now 1-3, 0-1 in conference play, and riding a three-game losing streak for the first time since 2020. There was a lot to be encouraged by, and some really concerning things as well. So today I'm just going to spend 10, probably longer, 10-ish minutes, running down what was in my notebook, what I saw at the game, and what I think kinda walking away from a loss like this that, Pat Narduzzi kind of alluded to this, I think, in his postgame report or postgame press conference, but it was only 17 points, and that sounds like a lot. It looks like a lot in the scoreboard, but I don't know. I thought Pitt played better than a 17-point loss, to be quite honest with you. I thought not all of this game was bad. Certainly, I think most of it was good. It's just, they played a good team and they made too many mistakes like you can against a good team and had some bad breaks as well. Um, we thought the vibes were bad, like, after Cincinnati and West Virginia, and the vibes are still pretty bad now, but they're different. They're more sad than kind of pissed off or frustrated or angry. Like, you just feel a little deflated, I think, because and we'll get into this in a minute, but, like, they showed some reasons for hope, showed some reasons why, they can turn this thing around, while there's some talent still on this roster, and then it just kinda all falls flat through a combination of bad luck and their own mistakes. So, like I said, we'll get into it. I think we gotta start with the quarterbacks. I think those were kind of the story of the night, is they've been the story of the season a little bit, and I say quarterbacks because we had 2. Uh, Phil Jurkovec was replaced by Christian Veillere in the middle of this game, but not for the reason that I think anyone really wanted. Phil Jurkovec actually, I thought, played his best half as a Panther in the first half. He completed 11 of 15 passes for about 100 yards, more than 100 yards. I'm pulling up stats right now. For 109 yards. That's a 134.4 passer rating. He was really good. Led 2 scoring drives. He was really good with his legs. Also ran for, I believe, 29 yards. That's sack adjusted. 26 yards. That's on 4 rushes. Excuse me. Sack adjusted. He was good. He was smart, he was efficient, he was accurate, he was everything that he wasn't through the first, let's call it 3 games, because I don't think his Wofford game was particularly great, but we can kinda throw that one out. But everything that he wasn't against West Virginia and Cincinnati, he was in the first half against North Carolina. Um, he hit on he was patient too. I think that was another big thing. Like, he took what was right in front of him at the beginning, like, early in the game, and then later when he needed to push it down the field a little bit, that's he started to see things open up. And it helped that the Panthers had a pretty good running game going. They were able to establish that a little bit more. We'll get in the offensive line in a minute, but they started the game really well, I thought. And Phil was good. And then in an instant, it gets undone as he's knocked out of the game with an injury by a targeting hit, from Tayon Holloway, I believe that was his name, backup defensive back for North Carolina. It was I think Blake Zuvovic kinda put it the best. That was tragic. He used that word, tragic, what happened to him. I think he was, first of all, upset with the hit. It was a late hit. It was clearly targeting. They did not take long to review it at all. The offensive line took issue with it. They let Holloway know that. They exchanged some words after the hit. But I think it's also, to use that word, tragic. It was, I think, sad to see Phil Dracovic finally play well and deliver and be good against a good team, all for it to kind of be undone on a cheap shot, quite honestly, on a legal hit, on an illegal hit, on something out of his control. It was sad. It was not, you never, like, for as much as I've criticized Phil, like, he didn't take any pleasure in watching him struggle, and then I think there was a nice story set up there, a nice redemption arc, Pitt at the very least, like, Pitt was leading for a good bit of that first half, they were in control, it felt like, and then there was a clear turning point, when Dracovic got knocked out and he had to come back in, or excuse me, when Veer had to come back in, and man, Veer looked not ready. I mean, on one hand, you get a little more confident, in Pat Narduzzi's ability to evaluate quarterbacks because Phil is clearly the best quarterback on this roster. I don't think there's any question about that after watching Veer play. Like, there's a reason why he's the starter and Veer's the backup, because Veer did not look ready. Yeah, it's a tough spot to come into, but he looked overwhelmed from the jump. Just not accurate, short arming things. You can tell there's some talent there, but decision making as well was not very good. Um, yeah, he was not very good, man. If Dracovic has a concussion, if he's out for multiple weeks, I'd feel pretty safe assuming that Bayer's gonna have to start against Virginia Tech. I don't know how they feel about Nate Yarnell. I think they like him, but he just might not be ready yet. So I don't know. You just I think you went from a half that was so encouraging to in a split second, you just have no you're dealing with these conflicting emotions of, if you're the average Pitt fan, like, oh, I'm really excited to see Christian Veillere, but also, wow, they knocked Jurkovec out in the middle of his best game in a Pitt uniform. Like I would argue that was even better than Wofford. So it's just a big question mark, and it's again, I can't give you much other analysis than it was a bummer. It was a bummer to, like, watch that happen and to realize that right as he's playing his best, gets knocked out, gets kinda taken from him in a way that he can't control. Um, and, kinda bouncing off of that, I don't think we gave enough credit to the notion that the offensive line is really struggling. Pat Narduzzi and Frank Signetti and even Andre Powell in some ways addressed this and referenced it, that the turnover that they've had on the offensive line, has been really damaging, not just to them as a unit, but to the quarterback play as well and the rest of the offense. I think I was a little quick to dismiss that out of hand as kind of an excuse for Jurkovec, but no, I think it's real. It got much worse this week when Matt Goncalves and Jake Cradle went down. They're still looking for a true starting right guard, between BJ Williams and Jason Collier Jr. And man, just there was tons of pressure. We saw this. I wrote about the stats this week that Pitt's allowing the highest pressure rate on dropbacks in the country that was heading into this game, and you know, not a ton of sacks, but I don't think they played very well. Like, I think quarterbacks were good at getting the ball away, even when they were getting the ball away quick when they were pressured. This offensive line, like, they started well. They were run blocking well in that first drive and got into a rhythm a little bit, but it was a real slog for the final, I'd say, 3 quarters of this game. It's clear moving guys around hasn't really worked, or hasn't, they haven't been able to pick up that chemistry. They haven't been able to play a lot together, and they just are not it as a unit right now. They're not cohesive. They are missing blocks, missing assignments, and just not getting pushed where they need to. And it was tough, and I think, like I said, I didn't give enough credence to the idea that, maybe Narduzzi knows what he's talking about with this offensive line. Maybe it wasn't just kind of covering for Phil. So this is also something that I don't think is going to get much better anytime soon, unless Calvis's injury is not long term. Unless Cradle can be back soon, you're still dealing with a patchwork offensive line, and that's tough. It's tough for any quarterback to overcome, any offense to overcome, and, Pitt told us that players and coaches told us that they've done this before, that they've filled in on the offensive line before, they've filled in with backups, but I don't know, this is attrition the likes of which I have not really seen, and I'm unsure how they're gonna react to it, especially as we kinda think about where the schedule is going and who they have lined up. It's walking into Blacksburg with Christian Veillere starting behind and almost a 2/3 backup offensive line, or 3 of the 5 players in the offensive line entered the year as backups. That's just doesn't inspire any kind of confidence. Virginia Tech's not great, but man, you are walking into a difficult environment uh with a group of really inexperienced guys. So we can shift over to the defensive side of the ball for a minute. I think this defense has some talent, but there's some clear growing pains. They did some good things, like they held, Drake May and a really good UNC offense to, I think, 100 yards below their season average in terms of total yards. Um, they got after the quarterback. I think they sacked him 5 times. The defensive line starting to look much more like, yeah, that's right, 5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. Like, this defensive line is starting to look a lot more like the defensive lines of the past. They're starting to figure it out. But man, the secondary has got some ways to go. Uh, they are young back. They're a little younger back. I mean, at safety, they're younger, less inexperienced, more inexperienced back there. But these corners got tested for the first time this season, and they did not, I think, stand up to the challenge. I don't think Drake May made a ton of incredible throws like he did last year, and Pitt's DBs were just getting beat, just plain and simple getting beat. I think you need more from them, especially when I think this safety group is struggling a little bit, especially to cover. I think they're all decent run stuffers. I think particularly, Donovan McMillan, obviously that guy can tackle. But Javon McIntyre too, coverage is where they're kind of struggling. And McIntyre struggled a little bit. I don't think Donovan McMillan is, I won't say ever be a great cover guy, but right now he's got a ways to go. He's just more of a line of the scrimmage guy. And man, PJ O'Brien has been bad. I been really underwhelming. And it's a guy that I like. Like, I really thought PJ has a ton of talent. I love the passion he plays with, but he's getting beaten coverage. He's missing tackles around the line of scrimmage on run plays, and then he's picking up pass interference penalties that really hurt you. Um, just too many mistakes for a guy like that to remain in the lineup. This safety rotation is shrinking pretty quickly, um, and yeah, O'Brien's probably not going to be a part of it for much longer unless he shows something very different. Linebackers, I think, played well for what they had. I mean, losing Bengali Kamara, he didn't play in this game, and that was a huge loss. I will say I thought Nick Lappy played well. Kyle Lewis, I think, continues to be pretty solid for them. Braylon Lovelace been a little hit or miss. He's been a good special teamer, but as far as actual defensive snaps go, I think he's probably a little bit behind Lewis and the other guy I mentioned, Lappy. Obviously, Lappy's been around for a while. So, um, like I said, like same with the offense. Like there's some encouraging things, but just too many mistakes, too many penalties. I believe they had 6 defensive penalties called against them. I'm pulling this up right now. 7 for 63 yards. I think at least 1, 2. So all but one came when North Carolina had 10 or more yards to get a first down, and in 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 of those 7 ended in a automatic first down. Um, the offense had 4 penalties as well. All of those were killers too. But man, they let UNC get away with so much. They I'm trying to think of how to phrase this because, like, they played decently well, I thought. I think the numbers back that up, like I said, about 100 yards less than their season average, but, man, these penalties were just killer, and they were dumb too. Like, the Donovan McMillan personal foul, dumb, really dumb. There were so many times they had, UNC backed up in the shadow of their own end zone, and they bailed them out with penalties, and instead of getting good field position, kinda flipping the game a little bit, stealing from momentum, they just gave it away. Gave it away in and gave it away to a team that didn't need anything to get given away get given to them. Um, it was bad. It was bad. Um, so, uh, I think the first step to kinda making sure this defense can kinda improve and take steps forward is just bottling up those penalties, um, and the rest will come, honestly. I don't like I said, think they played very badly, but they just kept shooting themselves in the foot. They kept themselves on the field longer. They didn't take advantage of mistakes when UNC was offering them. I think that was kind of a theme for the night. I think no sequence encapsulated the night better than when Rasheem Biles blocks a punt, second game in a row he blocks a punt, gets Pitt the ball back. I think they were down just 17 at that point still. It was in the fourth quarter, I want to say. He blocks the punt, Pitt gets the ball at UNC's 20-yard line, and on the first play, uh, that the offense has, Christian Vier fumbles a handoff, like a simple handoff on a jet sweep. Um, just every time Pitt had a chance to get back into the game and to make it a game or to put their stamp on it, take control in some way, gain some momentum, they just gave it right back. Um, I get it. This team has been killed by injuries, but man, just the inability to execute fully for an entire game is incredibly frustrating. And to do the small things, I think, yeah, they're not doing the small things well, and they're trying to make too many big plays. They're trying to force things, and when you're in a 1-3 hole, it feels like you have to. But I don't know, Pitt just needs to do the little things a little bit better because I don't know. I don't think they have the right combination of talent and experience to pull themselves out of big holes. And the way you avoid falling into big holes is you start a little bit more solid and you act a little, you avoid falling into big holes by staying on schedule and not beating yourself, not shooting yourself in the foot. And I think about that, especially as you look ahead to Virginia Tech and a winnable game, but it's a tough environment to play in. And if Pitt can't, can't help themselves from committing 11 penalties for 83 yards, if they, just don't have if they are without Phil, if he is out multiple weeks, Rodney Hammond left this game as well early with what looked like an injury. You just really wonder what the rest of the season has in store for them because, like I said, does not get any easier. Um, Virginia Tech bye week and then Louisville, and you're right in the thick of conference play, and then uh, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but like pretty soon after that, you start hitting the meat of this where Florida State and Notre Dame pop up, and you're closing the year with Duke. This schedule is a lot harder than it looked like it would be at the beginning of the year, and even though Pitt is showing some flashes and some potential, they still feel like they're taking steps back, and part of that is injuries, part of that is their own play, but you just leave this game really disappointed and quite frankly not very optimistic at all. So with that, I'm headed out of here. Thanks for tuning in to another Inside Pitt post game report. We'll be back on Monday after our conversation with Pat and Arduzzi. We'll talk about this loss a little bit with a little bit more detail in mind, and take some more time to digest it, then look ahead to Virginia Tech. So make sure to like this video and subscribe to us on YouTube. That's youtube.com/@InsideThePanthers, and find all of our reporting on the Panthers as they look to right the ship at InsideThePanthers.com. Like I said, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, see you.